The first video I did for this YouTube channel was about this guitar, the Ibanez RG421EX. That video was my full review of this instrument, and if you want, you can go back and watch afterwards to get the full context of what I said there, but today's video will be a standalone piece about the 421 as well. Despite having already made a full review of this guitar, it's been about 6 months since I released that video, and in that time I used this guitar a lot. Tried a ton of things with it, and gathered new information I want to share with you guys. So let's start this review follow-up as I usually do. We'll look at a 1-minute demo of the RG421, and then we'll discuss some ideas about it. See you in a minute. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. I'm currently at 680 subscribers, but can we get to 1,000? With your help, I'm sure we can, so please hit that subscribe button, it would be super helpful. Alright, back to the video. In my first video, I told you that the Ibanez RG421EX is a poorly built guitar that plays really well, but sounds just okay. Well, after another 6 months of using it, even more actively than before, I want to add some nuance to those conclusions. This Ibanez sells currently for 358 euros on Thomann, although it's out of stock, and it seems to no longer be available on Sweetwater. At least the only one I could find was the RG421DX, which is the new Ibanez 2026 replacement model for this guitar. Although I haven't tried the new DX model yet, from looking at the spec sheet on the Ibanez website, this looks to be the exact same guitar, just with a new paint job, new fret markers, and white pickups instead of black. But they're exactly the same pickups with the same electronic configuration. To me, it looks like they refreshed the look of the 421 to look more like an 80s shredder, more than a 2000s metalcore guitar, if that makes sense to you. But please don't make any purchasing decisions on that information alone. I haven't tried it, and until I do, I can't give you any solid opinions about it. Coming back to the EX model, the past 6 months I put this guitar through its paces a lot more than most people would in normal circumstances. First, I changed strings for my second video because I wanted to talk about low drop tunings, so I bought a pack of Ernie Ball Mammoth Slinkies and tuned down to drop A. And while the Mammoth Slinkies are a bit much for me and a bit much for this particular guitar, the Ibanez handled it pretty well. I have to say the pickups in particular didn't handle the drop A tuning super well, it got a bit muddy on the lows, but drop A in general is also pretty low for a 6-string that is not equipped with high-end metal humbuckers. The low E string, which is a massive 62 gauge, didn't completely fit the nut slot, so it was sort of hanging a bit. In general, I wasn't a big fan of the string pack because I found it slightly exaggerated and unnecessary for a 6-string, at least for how I use 6 strings, but the Ibanez totally pulled it off. Even though the low string didn't fit the nut completely, the guitar stayed completely stable in terms of tuning and performance. I tuned to drop A, recorded what I wanted, and had pretty much no performance or stability problems at all. Sure, I had to retune every once in a while, but nothing more than what I would do with this guitar in E standard. A couple weeks later, I grabbed the guitar again and restringed with Elixir 946, and the guitar is again stable as a rock. The neck isn't moving like crazy, the tuning stability isn't changing, and there's no buzzing on the fretboard, it just plays. And also, back in January there was a huge storm here in Portugal, and this office I'm in was slightly flooded. Nothing too bad, but enough to get all my guitars pretty much soaking wet, and they were inside their gig bags as well. Fortunately, I kinda caught that pretty early and dried all the guitars off really well, and so none of them had any damage. So the RG421 survived potential water damage with no consequences. It sounds, feels and plays exactly the same as before. and it took crazy strings and tuning changes with zero modifications done to it. And this is the main reason I love hardtail guitars. This guitar is extremely stable and barely needs any maintenance. After all the string changes I did, I never touched the truss rod or readjusted the bridge or anything like that. I just changed strings and played it, which to me is impressive even on a very expensive guitar and much more so on a cheap one. I mentioned in my original video that the tuners are okay, nothing to write home about, and I stand by what I said. The tuners are fine. They don't allow you to be super precise with the tuning, which is not great, but they don't detune constantly like some of the cheaper ones do. I think Ibanez chose a good compromise between price and performance, but if you're thinking of upgrading this guitar, I think the tuners are a great starting point. I'm sure a set of Goto tuners would make this guitar even more stable. So those are the good news, and fortunately I don't have any bad ones to give you today. Over the past 6 months, there hasn't been anything bad about this guitar that I didn't know about already. So let's do a recap of what's not so great about the Ibanez RG421EX. The volume and tone knob are pretty bad. They're super slow and they're not smooth at all, quite the contrary. And also it goes from 0 to max volume pretty quickly. I've seen much better potentiometers and knobs on guitars at this price point, so Ibanez definitely cheaped out on this department. Not a huge deal, but important to know. The pickup switcher is also terrible. It wiggles from side to side, which is something I hadn't seen before. It's just super low quality, and there's also some noise when switching pickups, which isn't great. Again, nothing that would stop me from recommending this guitar, but good to know beforehand. I'm also not a fan of the satin finish. While in theory I thought the guitar would look great, I would prefer a cheap glossy finish over the matte one any day. I think satin finishes probably look much better on more expensive guitars, and there's also a blue version of this guitar out there with a glossy finish, which in my view looks much nicer in person, if you like the color, of course. Another thing that's not great here is the fingerboard, and I think it's quite obvious that Ibanez didn't spend as much time as needed on the fretboard. There's very obvious tool marks in the frets, and playing feels a bit rough when bending in some places. The frets are also not very smooth, and the whole assembly looks a bit messy. Even for a cheap guitar, I've seen much better. But let me tell you again that the neck on this is phenomenal. That was one of the main points I made in my review, and I want to state once again that I still stand by what I said there. The Wizard 3 neck is the absolute best part of this guitar. And lastly, I want to talk about the sound of the guitar. And look, this is not the most important point here, especially because you can just switch pickups at any point and get a better sound. But these pickups are not very good at all. The in-between positions continue to be completely useless to me, and trust me, I've tried to use them in recordings, and the main positions are a bit hit or miss. Sometimes I can get really great tones out of this guitar, sometimes I can't. And that's just not the case with my much more expensive Fender Vintera Strat, for example. So I truly think this guitar would benefit a lot from a better pickup set. But then again, I don't think it's a bad idea that Ibanez decided to cheap out on the pickups, because that's honestly one of the easier mods to do on a guitar. You can even do it yourself. And if you decide you want a better sound, you can just go and do it. So after another 6 months of heavy daily usage, I've come back to tell you that most of what I said in my first review absolutely still stands. And that this is one heck of a resistant and stable guitar. If you buy it with the right expectations, that this is a cheap guitar with some important limitations if you're looking for pro sound, I'm sure you'll be very happy. Just make sure to try it beforehand or buy it from a place where you can return it, because the neck may or may not be for you. For me, it's the perfect neck, and I haven't been able to find anything that I like as much, but I will keep searching. Guys, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe, it would help me a lot. And let me know in the comments what you think about the RG421EX. Do you own one? If not, would you buy it? Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.